Okay, I see it's 7 o'clock. A last call to sign up to speak. If you're not on the list, you will not get to speak. Please make sure you've signed up to speak if you would like to. Last call. All right. Can you pass the sign-in sheet when you get a chance? Well, we'll give one more chance here before we call the meeting. Ma'am, if you'd like to sign in to speak, this is your last chance. Please do sign in if you want to speak tonight.
Trustee Francis, can you see if there's any more sign-ins over there, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
There are none.
Great. All right, 7 o'clock, and now that Trustee Francis is here, we can call the meeting to order. We've got a full agenda tonight, a lot of folks here who want to speak, and a lot to get done. I'm pleased to see everybody here tonight. So the first order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Francis?
Here.
Trustee Paveza?
Here.
Trustee Schiappa?
Here.
Trustee Snyder?
Here.
Trustee Mattal?
Here.
Trustee Model?
Here. Great. First item on the agenda is the consent agenda. All items listed with an asterisk are considered routine by the village board and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a board member or a citizen so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda. So, the consent agenda. Under minutes, A, approval of regular board meeting of February 11th, 2019. B, receive and file draft of water committee meeting of February 11th, 2019. C, receive and file draft of environmental quality commission meeting of February 12th, 2019. D, receive and file draft of plan commission meeting of February 18th, 2019. E, receive and file draft of economic development committee meeting of February 20th, 2019. Under nothing under ordinances, under resolutions. 7A, approval of resolution extending the vegetation management agreement with Commonwealth Edison concerning the 138 kV transmission line area. Under considerations, if you can go down to G, approval of request for proposal for brokerage services related to group health insurance benefits for fiscal year 19 and 20. H, approval of recommendation to ratify emergency purchase of road salt. I, approval of request for raffle license for Gower School PTO and hosting facility license for Gower Middle School for its fun fair on March 8th, 2019. J, approval of nominations. K, approval of vendor list dated February 25th, 2019 in the amount of $514,479.68 for all funds plus $190,969.65 for payroll for a grand total of $705,449.33, which includes special expenditures of $30,580.80 for 2 deliveries of road salt and $199,273.31 for purchase of Peterbilt dump truck with plow. And that would be everything under the consent agenda. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, clerk, please.
So the motion would be to remove K, which
Oh,
is on
I'm
the
sorry.
consent agenda.
Right, do I need to read that?
Yeah, it's part of the motion. So K would be excluded.
So your motion includes everything that I read off except for item K.
K.
Thank you.
J.
J.
Oh, J, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Removal of J.
The previous agenda.
That's your motion. Does your second still stand?
Yeah.
Okay, clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Snyder?
Yes.
Trustee Mattal?
Yes.
Trustee Francis?
Yes.
Trustee Paveza?
Yes.
Trustee Schiappa?
Yes.
Trustee Model?
Yes. Great. Now, the next item on the agenda would normally be residents' comments, but I see we've got a lot of residents and a lot of people want to speak. I also know we have two hopefully quick orders of business to take care of. So in the interest of running an efficient meeting, I'm asking if the other trustees will allow us to go out of order and take care of consideration A and B first, and then carry on with the regular agenda, starting with residents' comments. Is there consensus to do this? Is there a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to go out of order.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion on this? All in favor? Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Snyder?
Yes.
Trustee Mittal?
Yes.
Trustee Francis?
Yes.
Trustee Paveza?
Yes.
Trustee Skiappa?
Yes.
Trustee Model?
Yes. Great, so now we're skipping to section under considerations. A, consideration of recommendation to award contract to Sports Facility Advisory, SFA, for consultant services related to feasibility studies of downtown sports facility in an amount not to exceed $51,750. Who's presenting this?
Yes, I'll have Assistant Village Administrator Evan Walter present this on behalf of the Economic Development Committee, who has made a recommendation to accept this proposal. Evan?
Thank you. So at the January 14th meeting, the board approved an RFP for consulting services for a feasibility study for the downtown sports facility project. In total, we received 4 responses. All were very high quality. However, an internal staff review along with DCVB, their assistance, again, as Doug had mentioned with the recommendation of the ADC, we would like to recommend that Sports Facility Advisory be awarded this contract. A representative from Sports Facility Advisory is also here with us. He'd like to make a short presentation just to better inform the board as to what their company is able to do and just their capabilities overall. So with that, I'll turn it over. Doug, if you want to hit admin PC on bottom, and then podium 1. There we go. Thank you.
Well, first and foremost, thank you for your time this evening. I'm Evan Eliff. I'm the COO of SFA, Sports Facilities Advisory, also one of the owners, partners in Sports Facilities Advisory and Sports Facilities Management. As Evan alluded to, what I'd like to do is just spend a few minutes briefly in overview of our companies, who we are, what we do, and our approach for Burr Ridge. 2 companies, Sports Facilities Advisory, which is technically who replied to the RFP, but we also have Sports Facilities Management. Between those 2 companies, we have 4 primary suites of service. We plan, we fund, we open, and we manage sports complexes. And so for us, sports has evolved over the last 16 years that we've been in business. It's now sports and recreation and events and entertainment and wellness. Most of our facilities have some combination of at least 4 or all 5 of those. But we've been doing this, as I mentioned, since 2003. Over that period of time, we've served over 2,000 communities nationally and internationally, over $10 billion worth of planned facilities, and today we manage a few dozen facilities across the country, as well as provide management services to dozens more on an annual basis through our role as advisors for real-world operations in very similar circumstances to certainly the climate here, as well as some very different markets and some very similar facilities as what you're considering and talking about, as well as some very different facilities. So our breadth is pretty significant across this industry, and what I'd like to really focus on is that last point. 99% of what we do is youth and amateur in nature, so sports, recreation, events, wellness, etc., youth and amateur. We've got some professional stadium experience, we've got some professional athletes and some professional teams that we work with, but what we really do is we serve communities. So our mission across both companies is the same. It's to dramatically improve the health and the economic vitality of communities through our products and services, through our management capabilities, through our advice and advisory services to communities, really focusing on people, on residents in the community, and how these types of facilities, when properly planned and properly operated, can improve the lives of the community members. So we have several areas of focus, relative specifically, or I should say relevant specifically to what you're talking about. I want to juxtapose 2 of them. One is sports tourism. So sports tourism is the only segment of the tourism industry that didn't decline in a single quarter during the recession. And coming out of the recession, the youth and amateur portion of the sports tourism industry has exploded. Every year, especially over the last 4 or 5 years, it's seen increases by 5 to over 10% per year. Last year, sports tourism, youth and amateur sports tourism, was over an $11 billion industry in the United States alone. And a lot of that is really focused on competitive sports and travel sports and an increase in travel sports. So what you see on a regional basis is the Midwest, very active in the space, the second largest region for sports tourism on the youth and amateur side. Now at the same time that all of these games are being played and all of this money is being spent on travel, the downside to that is that we have a decline in activity amongst kids. What we've seen every single year for the last 8 or 9 years is fewer and fewer and fewer kids participating to active levels. This chart shows kids who are participating at least 3 hours a week in high calorie burning activities, which I'll show you in a moment has significant benefit in the lives of children and in communities. However, this decline is happening. I won't go into the details. I'm happy to if you'd like, but during this presentation, several reasons for this. But at the end of the day, the point is we're seeing fewer kids active in sports and recreation, and we are very active ourselves in trying to combat that. One of the initiatives we're really proud of is on a national level, the Aspen Institute Project Play 2020, which takes 8 plays and is addressing how to improve access for kids and for families to sports and recreation assets and programs in communities. So we're partnered with some of the biggest names in sports and in industry in the United States. You see some of the logos, Dick's Sporting Goods, Major League Baseball, the NBA. Our logos there, Nike's part of this initiative, 20 founding companies really devoted to improving access in time, in cost, and location for kids and for families related to sports and recreation activities. And the reason this is so important to us is because of the impact that kids being active has on their lives and on the health of a community. So without going into too many details, kids who are active at least 3 hours per week in high calorie burning activities, that chart that I showed you earlier on the decline, those kids are 1/10 as likely as their inactive peers to develop childhood obesity. They earn higher test scores on standardized tests. They're less likely as teenagers to participate in risk behaviors related to sex, drugs, and alcohol. They're more likely to graduate from high school and more likely to go to college or have the option of going to college. Those kids who are active for at least 3 hours per day, or per week, when they're growing up, go on to be more productive citizens. They go on to earn 7 to 8% more as adults. They have lower prevalence of major health factor risk, or health risks, I should say. They have lower medical costs. But that's a compounding benefit because those kids who grow up active at least 3 hours per week are almost 6 times as likely to be active adults themselves. And active adults are twice as likely to have active children. So the benefit of providing access in meaningful ways and great programming in a community to kids in the short-term future has an intergenerational impact on communities. And that's really what we're all about. So how do we do that? We've got a process called Concept to Concrete. To oversimplify that, it's 8 steps, starting with very early concept development. We can have a role if something's on the back of a napkin, and we can have a role if something is already under construction. So it's not that we have to go through these steps, but going from early concept through proper planning, partnership development, creation of the funding strategies, and obtaining the funding mechanisms necessary to get a facility up and running, grand opening, and all the way through ongoing management. Between our 2 companies, SFA and SFM, we can handle all of those, and we've done that successfully for many, many communities. Rocky Top Sports World in Gatlinburg, Tennessee, the Upward Star Center in Spartanburg, South Carolina, Myrtle Beach Sports Center in South Carolina, Cedar Fair, Sandusky, Ohio, Rocky Mount Event Center, North Carolina, et cetera, et cetera. We have a lot of experience operating here. We're partial owners in Bo Jackson's Elite Sports Development Group. You probably know about the Bo Dome in Lockport. We opened a couple of years ago our second Bo Dome in Hilliard, Ohio. We help to manage a couple of different facilities, and we're very active in Chicagoland, as you'd expect, with the number of people and the number of projects, the number of communities, and how participative people are in sports in this area. So again, all of those steps we can be part of, But for today, in the RFP that we have responded to and the services that we've proposed, we're really focused on the first two: early concept development and feasibility and forecasting, determining what the very best path forward is for this community to develop a sports, recreation, wellness, entertainment, events center, some combination of those things. And so within our scope of work, we've outlined 4 steps. The first step is a kickoff meeting, which if tonight's approval goes through, then we will have an initial kickoff tomorrow morning, and then we'll have a formal kickoff with more of my team members via phone. We'll commence existing data review and get into the local market and really understand what's going to serve this community really well, what the key factors related to participation and age and demographics and socioeconomics and competition are. We'll go from there and come back with a couple of the team members. I may be here, it may be me and 1 or 2 of my team members, it may be a couple of other team members. We have a lot of folks on our team who have been very active in this space, in this sub-region, I should say, in the Chicagoland market. So market and site tour, business development, planning session, that's really, we call it a BDPS, but that's a deep dive session where we really start to understand the parameters of the project and make sure that everyone's on the same page going forward. And community engagement, we'll meet with, stakeholders, potential end user groups, etc. From there, we'll use all of that information and our processes to develop a detailed financial forecast, institutional grade financial forecast, which is regularly taken to Wall Street to make funding decisions, and bond councils and local communities and private investors, etc. And we'll wrap that up with a narrative. So we've created an outline for those services. If you look at those 4 steps of basically a 12-week project timeline, that's all in the proposal. I won't go through the details there, but I did want to put that forward, that we are working on a 12-week timeline once and if our services are approved here tonight. So with that, happy to answer any questions that you've got, and appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thank you. Is there anything additional that staff wanted to add before I turn it over to the board for questions?
No, I just wanted to mention that beyond the fact that SFA was, in my opinion, the most qualified firm, they also offered us the quickest turnaround and the lowest price of any firm that came through with our responses.
That was out of 4.
Correct.
Wonderful. Anything else, Doug? Anything from the board? Any questions or comments from the board members?
So after 12 weeks, which is like targeting end of May, then you're going to present a proposal to us as to why this would be suitable, or different options. I mean, what can we expect at that point in time?
Yeah, candidly, there's also the possibility that we don't recommend going forward. We get hired oftentimes because we're not afraid to say no. Sorry for the quick tangent, but if you look at 100% of the feasibility studies that we perform on an annual basis, 30% of those come back as feasibility no, which is to say, here's your opportunity and here's what you wanted to achieve, and those just aren't going to mesh. On the other end of the spectrum, 20% come back as feasibility yes, which definitions of success, market opportunity, minor tweaks, and we can make those work. The 50% in the middle is where we do our best work. That's what we call feasibility yes if, which is the scenario where we know what you want to do, we know what the market has for that opportunity. We need to make some major shifts, either in how you define success or in what we're going after in order to come up with the right path forward. 12 weeks from now, we'll give you that right path forward. It'll be clear and concise. We may, through the process, decide that there are going to be different options to evaluate, or we may decide through the process with you and the stakeholders, key decision makers for the project, that there needs to be one definitive model to make a very quick decision on. And whichever direction that heads, we're happy to be part of that.
Yes, Trustee Paveza.
The thing I'd be interested in as you go along is the revenue stream. I like the concept, but I'm still trying to figure out the revenue stream and the cost and how it's going to fit in. I was deeply involved with an ice rink for a lot of years, so I get an idea a little bit how this stuff works. So I'm very interested in what the revenue stream's going to be.
Yeah. Our process, and as Evan mentioned, we're actually operators. So one of the differences, and you heard this throughout the presentation, is that we know real-world operations better than anyone in the country because we do manage a lot. We have managed a lot of facilities. and we have more data about operations, or from operations, than anyone else. So all of our projections and analyses are based on real-world operations, and we are constantly updating and tweaking our systems for projecting, making sure that what we're actually doing is reverse engineering real operations on a national level, on a regional level, on a local level, as best as possible. And so our pro forma, our detailed financial forecast, will include a very significant detail in the different types of programs and the revenues, why you can charge what you can charge, and how many times you can run that per year, how many people you should expect to register. And so it's very detailed, and again, based off of real world operations, including those here in the Chicagoland area.
Trustee Francis?
Yes, thank you. I reviewed your list of major projects and noticed that a lot of the projects are in Texas, Florida, Tennessee, the Carolinas, a couple in 2 or 3 in Ohio, and 1 in Woodridge, Illinois, 1 in the Chicago area. So explain to me how you will tap into the Chicago area market and how you'll gain that expertise in this area.
In reality, we've developed over 70 facilities across the country in our 13 years, and we've been involved in a lot more projects than that. We managed for several years Lake Barrington Fieldhouse in Lake Barrington. That was built by a private group, underperforming. We got brought in by the bank to take it through foreclosure, and we did that successfully. So we've got real operational experience here. I mentioned Bo Jackson's Elite
We're talking
Sports.
about a study, though, not operations yet.
Excuse me?
We're talking about a study, not operations.
No, we operated Lake Barrington.
I understand that, but tonight, we're here in Burr Ridge, we're talking about a study. So
Yes.
explain to me how you gain the market data and market expertise for a study.
So again, we have the real world operational experience, but our actual process for analyzing, it's an 8-step process, 68 different factors. We start with the drive times from the site location, and so we'll look at 5, 7, 10, 15, etc. minute drive times. We look at the age breakdown, sports participation by age breakdown. The next 4 steps happen sort of simultaneously. We measure competition, other socioeconomic factors, the actual management group that's going to be managing it, assuming either it's in-house or outsourced management, etc. And then finally, we look at growth. So growth in either an increase or decrease in your population size, increase or decrease in participation rates, and increase, typically, in how real-world facilities grow from maturity, from opening through management. So the process that we use, again, is based on real-world operations and how they've actually performed, and the analytics behind that are based on 8 steps, 68 different factors for every single activity that we'll project. Is that helpful?
Yes, thank you.
Trustee Schiappa?
So I sit on the Economic Development Committee where we reviewed your proposal, and thank you for your presentation. It was a good presentation. So if anyone has any questions, the opportunity is in the TCF property, which is close to the Village Center, and that's the property that we're looking at to potentially develop into some sort of sports facility. So that's why we've hired this company to do a feasibility study to see if something like this would work in our area. So thank you again. Thank you.
Is there a motion from the board at this time, or is there any other discussion from the board on the subject?
I'd like to make a motion to move forward.
Second.
Great, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion and the second? Great, clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Snyder?
Yes.
Trustee Schiappa?
Yes.
Trustee Mattal?
Yes.
Trustee Paveza?
Yes.
Trustee Francis?
Yes.
Trustee Model?
Yes. Congratulations, we look forward to working with you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Okay, great. Now we're on consideration B, consideration of an economic development incentive between Aramis Materials and the village. And who's queuing this one up?
This is another recommendation from the Economic Development Commission, and I'll once again have Evan Walter present that recommendation.
Thank you, Village Administrator. So late last year, staff was notified by Trustee Schiappa of an opportunity that had presented itself to recruit a concrete materials business seeking to establish a sales office within the western suburbs. Concrete sales are eligible for sales tax revenue, So all business booked through the sales office would be eligible for sales tax revenue. As such, we inquired about this particular company. In this case, it's called Aremus Materials. The big thing that was concerning to staff was originally, if it's a concrete company, would it not then bring a concrete plant? However, that's not the case in this particular situation. We're only looking to bring a sales office, a 2,000 square foot sales office to the village in this case. There would be no ancillary concrete mixing or materials manufacturing business locating within the village. So again, just the sales office component. As I had said, this is a sales office at permitted use under the proposed address that it's looking to locate at. Again, no trucks, heavy equipment, or other construction materials being stored on site. Very quiet, very low impact. Otherwise would fit the character of this neighborhood quite well. Working under the direction of the Economic Development Committee, staff had worked with the Aremus Materials to formulate a prospective and tentative offer for a sales tax rebate equivalent to 50% over 5 years' time. Aremus Materials they had previously existed in Chicago for some time. They had moved to Arizona, but then are seeking to restart their business back here in the Chicagoland region. Lots of building going on here, so there will be an ample supply for this type of company to operate within. The company is projected to generate approximately $150 to $160 million in retail sales in its first 5 years. That would mean that the total value of the retail sales tax would be approximately $2 million in total. So just to reiterate, their total sales tax generated would be about $2 million in value, which would mean that our prospective tentative agreement would be about a $1 million abatement back to the company, and then $1 million would come to the village over that time frame. Afterwards, the village would retain the full value of the sales tax. So the Village Economic Development Plan is what we use to kind of formulate this plan. This provides us with a framework for approving these deals or recommending these deals. There are 4 specific goals that it seeks to achieve. First is they have to attract a targeted or highly desired business that accomplishes one or more of the following, and the one that this particular business had met was attracting new customers without significantly impacting existing businesses within the village. Again, because as this is a sales office, there would be very little impact on the neighboring community as well as the development community overall, while generating a large amount of sales taxes. Furthermore, the Economic Development Plan specifies that an incentive must not exceed 5 years in length, with no more than 50% of the sales tax generated over this period being permitted for abatement, as well as being that the business must generate at least $10 million in taxable revenue and $100,000 in retail sales tax annually to qualify for consideration of such incentives. According to staff and the EDC analysis, Aremus Materials meets each of these standards for revenue generation, for being a targeted business, and other capacity factors. Again, initially over the first 5-year period, this is worth about $1 million to the village. Once we get past year 5, it would be approximately a $600,000 sales tax generator for the village. So again, this is a sizable per year. This would be a sizable sales tax generator once it is at capacity. Just to close, at the regular meeting on February 20th, the EDC unanimously recommended that the board approve this incentive for Aremus Materials. If approved this evening, what would happen is that staff would work with Aremus Materials to work on a finalized agreement. We'd be working with our attorney to make sure that all the legal language is safe for both parties and acceptable to the board if it were approved. Finally, this incentive is related to 2 distinct strategic goals established by the board in 2017, which include diversifying village revenues and attracting revenue businesses. Mr. Aremus is here this evening to answer any questions you may have, as will staff. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Trustee Scalpa, did you have a comment?
Yes, so I was approached by Mr. Aremus to find out what kind of assistance the village can work with Aremus Materials. He's looking to restart a concrete business that his family has started many years ago as Prairie Materials. The family had sold the interest, and now Mr. Aremus is back here to restart his family company. He was looking at different villages, and being that Mr. Aremus is a resident of the village, I wanted to keep him and his business here in the village. So we worked very hard at putting together an incentive program for him to reside his business here. So I look forward to getting support from the trustees to help Aremus Materials call Burridge home.
Trustee Paveza.
I read the background information on the project, and I see it as a definite possibility and a definite increase of income, and I think we should look into it.
Wonderful. Trustee Snyder.
I think it's perfect timing with the potential constructions that we were going to be going in the future.
Trustee Mattal.
I think it's great to have businesses like this in our village. It expands a lot of possibilities.
Trustee Francis.
My father was a customer of Prairie Materials in the 70s and 80s, bought a lot of ready mix. And I think after that, after you had sold it, I had purchased some ready mix from you in the early 2000s. But the family is known for their integrity and their honesty. I appreciate Trustee Schiappa bringing this to the village. It's a huge bonus for us. Keep in mind the upcoming tri-state reconstruction that's supposed to start in the next few years. I'm sure that this company would be an integral part as a material supplier for that reconstruction. And I think there's a great opportunity for our village, and I support it.
Wonderful, wonderful. Mr. Ramus, you're here. Did you want to say any words at all, or you're comfortable? You don't have to, but if you wanted to say anything, it's your opportunity.
At this point, this is a great opportunity for us as well. We're really happy. We love being in Burr Ridge. I'm happy that we could, besides have my family be here, I want my business to be here as well. The people that are going to come here to work are very excited because they're not familiar with Burr Ridge. They just drive down the expressway, and when they saw how good the location was, it kind of made everyone's day. So it's kind of a side benefit, the fact that it's a great location for us to do business. It's a great opportunity. We plan on being here for, 50 years, not me, but other people in my family plan on being that. But Burr Ridge really went out of their way to make me feel good about wanting to do this here. I wanted to do it anyway, but this helps. It helps us to compete against people that have tremendous means, worldwide companies. But we're going to do okay, and whatever we do here, we're going to make sure it's something you guys will be proud of. We're really happy to be here.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. As a business person myself, I appreciate where you're coming from. And the Economic Development Committee, I want to compliment Tony and the team on the Development Committee for working with you to bring this together. The staff, everybody worked pretty hard. So hopefully we're going to get an approval here tonight. And I guess that's all we need to do right now at this time. Is there a motion to approve this incentive?
I motion for the consideration of the economic development incentive between Aramis Materials and the Village of Burr Ridge.
Second.
Great, we've got a first and second. Is there any discussion on the motion on the floor? No, seeing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Schiappa?
Yes.
Trustee Mattal?
Yes.
Trustee Snyder?
Yes.
Trustee Paveza?
Yes.
Trustee Francis?
Yes.
Trustee Model?
Yes. Great. Welcome to Burr Ridge.
Thank you very much.
So I had promised a speedy discussion there. Hopefully that was speedy enough for you all. Anyway, we're back now to residents' comments here, and the microphone is there. Your comments, please limit them to 5 minutes. That is our rule here in Burr Ridge. You've got 5 minutes to speak. If you will please be sure to state your name and the town you live in. Well, everybody that's going to come up has signed in already, and you've stated that you're residents, so we'll believe you, but please state it for the record anyway. So first up to speak is Betsy Levy from Burr Ridge.
Just speak into the
It'll
flat
hear
thing.
you,
Yeah.
it'll hear you loud.
Just into this,
You can just speak and it will hear you.
okey-doke. Okay, good evening. My name is Betsy Levy. I have lived in Burr Ridge for more than 40 years. My husband, Robert, is a former village trustee. I have known Zach Model and his family for many years. I know Zach to be an honest, dedicated, intelligent young man, and I am thankful that Zach is part of our village government. Zach brings a new energy and perspective to our village. As far as the motion before you tonight is concerned, my personal opinion is this. Our village board is elected to promote and improve our village and not to engage in a needless public humiliation of one of our elected officials. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next up is Lori Chang from Burr Ridge.
Hello, my name is Lori Chang, and I'm here today to show my support for Zach. It's refreshing to have a candidate with whom our his concern is for our village and its residents, and he shows it numerous ways. I have tried to stay informed about actions and events that affect Burbridge. I've gone to many of the school board District 86 meetings or fiascos, whatever you want to call them. The McDonald's going up in 83rd Street and 91st Street, I went to those meetings. I've gone to the asphalt plant meetings. They were going to try to put up on Route 83, which very well could have ended up as another Sterigenics health risk, I think. I think we need Zach so we have a voice, a strong voice, who will get things done for the village. Because his focus is the village, and we need to get things done. He's an involved board member who will not cower because some other outside communities or residents don't like what he says or agree. We are Burbridge, and we need to be a village. We, not anyone else. And Zach's going to do that for us. And all I can say is just imagine what Zach will do for Burbridge when he's mayor model. Thank you.
Next up is Richard Morton from Burbridge.
Good evening, trustees. My name is Richard Morton, Lake Ridge Club. Been a resident of Burr Ridge since 1989. Before that, I lived in Hinsdale from 1979, so I've been in the area for 41 years. Mr. Pollack, Mr. Walters, good evening. The first comment that I'd like to make is, and I hope I'll be afforded the full 5 minutes. I was reviewing materials for tonight, and I noticed that Ms. Mayer, when she was speaking, was interrupted about 3 minutes and 40 seconds into her, actually a little earlier than that. She was allowed to finish, but I do hope I'm afforded the full 5 minutes. We won February 15th when IEPA shut Sterigenics down. And there's a lot of reasons why that happened, including a ton of dedicated people that came together through the Stop Sterigenics group, came through other community outreaches, came through villages, calling EPA, calling elected officials, calling IEPA, and after 6 months, an initial win has been gained, and I'm grateful for each one of these people for their work, for them showing up at demonstrations, for them exposing their personal health crises to the world to witness and see. I'm grateful that after November 19th, Burr Ridge really stepped up to the plate, ordered testing, really started to move the ball forward. So I'm grateful for all of those people. But the fight isn't even close to ending. And we must keep our foot on the pedal, and we need to continue to call EPA, call IEPA, our senators and reps. EPA has two faces. It has a face that is presented to us by each passing administration and whatever their priorities are. Some are more environmental, some are less environmental. The House will change the budgeting, and they become not our friend at times, and they're contaminated by industry. Industry has found ways to contaminate the approval process, the regulatory process, and at the end of the day, the people of Burr Ridge and other like communities are harmed by that. So please do not let up. Now, turning my attention to the February 11th meeting, I do have a couple comments to that because it really hits home to me. Trustee Franzese made a comment attributed to Mr. Model that allegedly it was that the elevated cancer rates in Willowbrook are because the women in Willowbrook drink too much. 40 minutes later or so, Mr. Model had an opportunity. He rebutted that. He said he was troubled by the comment, did not say what was quoted. But he did clarify his position, and he said, and this is a quote, "I did mention that one drink or more a day increases a woman's risk of breast cancer substantially." Well, from my perspective, I don't see that as an improvement. I think what it really does is just frames your viewpoint of women. Breast cancer has affected my family. Judy was stricken by breast cancer in 2001. Was it because of styrogenics? We had lived here since 1989. I don't know, but because of God's grace, she still is with us today. I also know 10 of my neighbors. This is within a small 12-acre part of Burr Ridge. 10 of my neighbors have had breast cancer. And when they learn of your comments, I'm sure they'll be as upset with you as I am. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your time. Thank you for your comments. Next up is Yvonne Mayer from Burr Ridge. Order here, this is a board meeting. I appreciate your enthusiasm.
Good evening, Yvonne Mayer. I've lived in Burr Ridge since 2001. Trustees, tonight you will vote on Trustee Chappa's motion to remove Mr. Model as the interim mayor of Burr Ridge. Please vote yes on the motion. In the interest of open governance, the trustees and the mayor should comport themselves in a fully transparent way. Their actions should in no way violate the village residents' constitutional rights, including First Amendment freedom of speech rights. For a village official to try and silence or stifle a resident's right to criticize elected officials speaks volumes about that official's willingness or ability to serve and represent the entire community. Tonight, I want to point out two ways in which Trustee Model has infringed on residents' freedom of speech rights. At the last meeting on February 11th, at which Mr. Model was presiding as the interim mayor, during public comment, he twice told me to wrap my comments up, claiming I had exceeded the 5 minutes I was allotted. I'm glad the village videotapes its meetings and posts them on YouTube, complete with a time counter. My entire comment actually lasted only 4 minutes and 49 seconds. However, after only 2 minutes and 21 seconds, Mr. Model tried to silence me. Then, after only 3 minutes and 4 seconds, he did so again. Clearly, he did not like my criticisms of his behavior, so he tried to shut me up. Since the February 11th meeting, he has continued his suppression of free speech. Mr. Model maintains a Facebook page for his village president campaign. While some individuals are allowed to read his posts, comment on them, and share them, others are not allowed to comment at all. They are blocked from doing so. I am one of those individuals. Interestingly, I've never attempted to make a comment on his Facebook page, so I am assuming he has blocked me in retaliation for my public comments at these public meetings. In addition, he has not only blocked others, but actually deleted their comments from his Facebook page, and I believe some of those individuals are sitting in the audience tonight. Is this the type of person who should be sitting in the center seat tonight, or any night in the future, serving as the village president, the voice of Burr Ridge? No, it is not. Please do the right thing tonight and approve Trustee Chappa's motion. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next, Elena Galinsky from Burr Ridge.
Hello, can you all hear me okay? All right, I'm a resident of Burr Ridge. I've lived here since 2008 or so. I was shocked to hear the political vitriol at the last village board meeting. Frankly, I don't understand the basis of the hysteria and the insistence on taking things out of context. I don't understand why the same people who want politics out of the boardroom are bringing Zach Model's campaign messages into the boardroom. Maybe it's a political ploy. I feel compelled to share my perspective. I think Zach Model is doing a fine job as trustee, acting village president, and will make a great full-time village president. Tony Schiappa and Zach Model are both graduates of Hinsdale South. I remember when Tony Schiappa and Zach Model, as citizens, each publicly communicated why the high school referendum didn't make sense, why existing assets should first be used wisely, and why the former buffer zone was divisive and problematic. Zach Model and Anita Mittal exhibited leadership by co-chairing the Village's Schools Committee. This committee facilitated the collecting and sharing of information, including options of how our residents could seek improvements in the school districts that serve Burr Ridge. That information brought a spotlight on issues negatively affecting the majority of Burr Ridge residents. It was this committee that successfully identified and showed the curriculum inequity that exists in the District 86 public high schools, Hinsdale South and Hinsdale Central, which serve the majority of our residents. Before you helped us, individual Burr Ridge residents were completely ignored at District 86 board meetings. But the information the committee brought together on the inequities was finally acknowledged by the board. Now the school board is putting together a 3-year plan to achieve curriculum equity, which will be a big improvement for children from Burr Ridge who go to Hinsdale South. It has been a long and slow process, but I'm grateful for the leadership all 3 of you have shown, especially Zach Model. I encourage all of you on the Board of Trustees to focus on doing good work for the village and not being distracted by political theater in an election cycle that will soon be over.
Thank you for your comments. Next up on the list is Diane Bolus from Burr Ridge.
Hi, my name is Diane Bolus. I'm a resident of Burr Ridge and also a former Burr Ridge trustee. I wrote down my comments so I don't forget anything. I'm here tonight because I'm extremely disappointed with those calling for the vote to remove Zach as acting village president. Why would anyone want to do that? It seems more like a political stunt to help his opponent rather than anything that belongs in the boardroom. I know some trustees have said they would like to keep politics out of the boardroom, but it seems those are the same trustees bringing politics in here in an attempt to harm Zach and help his opponent. This is a real shame because Zach has shown extraordinary vision and leadership, taking on tough issues that no one else would in order to make Burr Ridge better. Before Zach helped us, concerns of Burr Ridge residents were completely ignored at District 86 board meetings. Now the divisive buffer zone is gone, and the school board is putting together a 3-year plan to achieve curriculum equity. This is a tremendous improvement for the children from Burr Ridge who go to Hinsdale South. Next, we would be great if we had the districts to stop trying to pass wasteful, unaffordable, unfair referendums and work with the community to pass a sensible, smaller referendum that truly funds the needs of the district. I know Zach has been a leader in that fight outside of his role as a village official. But look at the election totals from last November. Burr Ridge was a firm no on the referendum. So in his capacity as a private citizen, Zach is advocating a position that is supported by a vast majority of Burr Ridge residents. What's wrong with that? On other issues, I personally stood with Jack at a Sterigenics meeting and watched him engage in a kind and thoughtful manner with his constituents who were being nothing but verbally abusive to him. I know Zach puts residents' health and safety first. He has collected the information, took whatever actions he could, both in his official duty and in his campaign statements, to put residents' health first. Also, Zach has shared a great vision for the future of Burr Ridge. I spoke with him personally about this. He will work to bring the right kind of new development here that will maintain the character of our village and help keep our taxes low while fully funding and growing all the services our town provides and the residents expect. That is exactly what we need. We need someone who can bring us into the future, not someone who failed in the past. Zach is doing a wonderful job as trustee and acting village president, and will make a wonderful full-time village president. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next on the list is Linda Lucatoro from Burr Ridge.
My name is Linda Lucatoro, and I have lived in Burr Ridge for a little over 17 years. I am not into politics, and I am not proud to admit I have never attended a Burr Ridge Village Trustees meeting. I will occasionally turn into Channel 6 and listen to portions of the meetings. I do, however, routinely read the doings. What has catapulted me into attending this evening is my anger. I am angry at the articles I have read about Zach, which amount to character assassination, criticism, and obvious misinterpretations of what he has supposedly said. Not only am I angry, I am hurt. I have known Zach for over 20 years. I have been with him in social situations and informal business situations. I know him to be a person of outstanding character. He is bright, intelligent, articulate, and a reasonable young man. I know he couldn't have possibly said the things that he has been accused of saying. I also know his intentions good, as I'm sure all the board members have good intentions. He has nothing to gain personally or politically or in any business sense by giving of his time to our community. As all of you, he cares about the village of Burr Ridge. He's lived here all his life. He wants it to grow and prosper. He cares about the residents and wants to represent their best interests. Might he be the new kid on the block? Yeah. Might he have some different new ideas? Yes. But I see that as a very good thing. It is a good thing to have thinking people representing the people of Burr Ridge, putting as many ideas on the table as possible, then reasonably, respectfully discussing and evaluating them in order to arrive at the best case solution and scenarios. Might some think he's too young? I don't personally think someone is too young or too old to serve as a board of trustees. After all, John F. Kennedy became our president at age 43, and I do believe Theodore Roosevelt was age 42. So, let's stop the mudslinging, the accusations, and the judgments. It is not becoming to our village, nor the people who live in Burr Ridge and love Burr Ridge. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next on the list is Kathleen O'Hare from Burr Ridge.
Good evening. I sent an email to the trustees on February 16th. I heard back from a couple. I'm not sure if all of you received it. Rather than kind of rewrite, I have the same sentiment tonight, so I'm just going to read the exact email that I sent the morning of February 16th. I said, today should be a day of victory as I celebrated last night among residents the shutdown of Sterigenics. Instead, I woke today making sure I prioritized putting in writing my formal request that Mr. Zach Model be removed from his role as pro tem acting mayor. Acting is just what I feel like he does, with antics including curt verbal power plays and strange takeover ploys to unprofessionally represent visuals on donor funding with questionable intent, meanwhile engaging in uncomfortable debate, insistently speaking to the board with a sarcastic and cynical tone that I perceive to be rude and insensitive. It has unfortunately become a predictable scenario that I've come to expect when he is at the helm, either as pro tem mayor or as trustee. If you need more than my opined sentiment, but would prefer a statement as to why Kathleen O'Hare, Burr Ridge resident, wants Zach to be removed, I will try to be succinct. Quote, Zach's lack of professional demeanor is unbecoming of a trustee, and his attention-seeking lack of decorum makes me feel embarrassed to observe his behavior at public meetings. Months ago, I realized Mr. Model's priorities to push his opposition of the District 86 referendum, using his own funding and boasting of a win, resulting in an unfortunately erroneously tainted Burn Ridge post-referendum slam that I continue to hear resonate and will continue to work to dispel. I was previously disturbed to learn that he and Mayor Straub apparently misconstrued their personal referendum views as synonymous with village views by politicizing the referendum, intermingling his role as trustee. I was also able to cast aside Zach's proud role with the Illinois Manufacturing Association, the IMA, which is the same organization that sends ETO lobbyists, including Donovan Griffiths, to push for keeping Sterigenics in business, such as at the Illinois hearing that Evan Walter and I attended to hear those words precisely. I put all of these personally disturbing realities aside in recognizing the need for all trustees to unite for clean air. I truly tried to give Zach the benefit of a doubt, a clean slate without casting aspersion. I was nonetheless disheartened and sometimes aghast as I watched Zach's disregard for the toxic polluter under his nose, indicated by his disregard to the vital importance of clean air in our village. I feel well qualified to make my request since I have faithfully attended nearly all Burr Ridge Village meetings you have held since Sterigenics took hold of my priorities in August of 2018. But perhaps nothing solidified my concerns more than when I listened to the February 11th, 2019 meeting with my 11-year-old in the car. She overheard components of the Burr Ridge YouTube live stream. She asked me,
Mom, is that a reality TV show?
Zach Model appears to treat his temporary role as antic for folly, even to the ears of a child. Quite illustrative is that it took my daughter's comment to highlight more of his ongoing disgraceful showmanship that night. While I know I'm not alone in my distrust of Zach as pro tem mayor, I am keeping this correspondence as from myself and my observant daughter. I hope you will listen to me as a voice of reason, a professional with an upstanding community reputation and the knowledge that it is my projection that there will be negative impact that your board will continue to suffer if Zach is allowed to run rogue again in his follies. As added background, I had for several months been unnerved by an email Zach sent me posturing for some sudden help me understand the Sterigenics issue, which even at that time I stated was far too late in the game. He then attempts to blame others for disregarding him in some social media domains, as if to blame others for not educating him to the ETO facts that are widely available and for which the rest of you have shown a genuine interest, if not concern and alarm. Ever since I wrote that letter, I'm now in the process—
5 minutes, start concluding your comments, please.
Okay. Being a solution-oriented clinician, I recognize it is best to remedy the pattern of negativity and to choose to look forward. And in that spirit, I implore you to remove Zach Model from his role as acting mayor through a vote at your meeting. I'd like to ensure that the vote—
Please conclude your comments.
And please don't let Zach's bad behavior trump the good intentions of the rest of you trustees that you've displayed before my eyes since August. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Just one factual correction. I have no association with the IMA. I'm with the TMA, but thank you. Okay, we've got one more resident on the list, Catherine Greenspan from Burr Ridge.
Hi. Greenspan, sorry.
I'm sorry.
My husband will kill me if I don't.
Sorry if I
Sorry. I've lived in Burr Ridge for 4 years. My husband and I took a lot of time to find the place for our permanent home. We lived in the city for a long time. We temporarily lived in Lamont, and we painstakingly, over a couple of years, built our house here. We love Burr Ridge. My husband was from up north, would have preferred to live up north, but we chose Burr Ridge. Purposefully, because it is a beautiful village. We have a lot of amenities that are very convenient, you know, Starbucks and all of those things that everybody wants. But we also have peace and quiet. The lots are large, we have a lot of trees, we have great schools. I typically don't come to village meetings, in fact, this is my first, like I said, and I'm here to say I'm begging you all to remain very professional, even in your private citizen state, because you are representing us. And it is, you know, clearly Monday is where to be in Burr Ridge, because there are a lot of exciting things happening here, right? The Aremus partnership, as well as possibly a sports facility, which I'm thrilled about. They tried to do it in Lamont, it didn't work. I would love for it to happen in Burr Ridge. It's exciting. And we need the village to be united. We need to be as one. We need to feel like we are one. We don't need to attack each other. We certainly don't need, in this day and age, there's no reason why an elected official should ever resort to name calling or anything on that level. You are all much too intelligent for that. We have elected you for a reason, and it certainly is not to reduce our village, my village, to that level. So please, I'm asking you moving forward. We have so much that we should be grateful for. Clearly, we have big projects coming online. We need to stick together. It's going to take the village to get these projects done. Okay, please. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. That concludes the residents' comments portion of the meeting. We will now carry on with the rest of the meeting, which would be starting under considerations, I believe, C. Consideration of draft ordinance establishing valet licensing in Burr Ridge.
It says directed by the village board at your last meeting. Assistant Administrator Evan Walters prepared a memorandum report to the board describing current code enforcement, code compliance issues at restaurants in the village with valet parking, as well as an outline of a draft ordinance should the board want to consider adopting a valet licensing requirement in the village. I'll let Evan expand upon that.
Thank you, Village Administrator.
Question, please.
I'm sorry.
I don't know how to handle this right, but just before I left for the board meeting, I got an email from the attorney for Capri. He's got a medical emergency and would like to have it moved to next meeting so he could address it.
I'm not sure what that has to do with this right now. We're talking about a valet license.
Right,
So
we're
anyway,
talking about the valet.
I'm not hearing that motion right now. That's not under the agenda. That doesn't. I don't know.
Well, we're talking
Capri is
about a
not on the
valet,
agenda.
right? And that's what he wants to address.
Thank you. All right. We were
I think
just teeing
Trustee
up.
Pavese is looking just to table this item to the next meeting. So I motion to table this item to the next meeting.
That's all he asked is he wanted to address it, and he can't because of a medical emergency, and asked if we could table it till the next meeting. That's all we're asking.
Yes, Trustee Snyder.
I'm not sure why we're tabling anything, Trustee Pavese, for a simple reason. Capri Restaurant, or the attorney for Capri Restaurant, has nothing to do with the valet. The valet is separate than the Capri. That was some of the discussion. And I would go back to staff and ask staff to finish their discussion, and then we can go from there.
He just asked me, I mean, if the board don't want to do it, I just brought it up, that's all.
Thank you.
Just as a matter of procedure, I think there's a motion before the board. I don't know if there's a second to the motion or not. If not, then it would go back to the regular discussion on the ordinance at this point.
I'll second the motion.
What is the motion?
Trustee Scapa moved to table this to, I believe, the next meeting?
Table the consideration for draft ordinance establishing valet licensing in Burr Ridge.
So until when? You need to give a date.
3/11 is the next date.
Next meeting? Is that what your motion is?
3/11.
Are you seconding that, Trustee Francis?
Correct.
Is there any discussion on this motion to table the valet licensing program? No discussion. Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Schiappa?
Yes.
Trustee Francis?
Yes.
Trustee Mytal?
Yes.
Trustee Snyder?
No.
Trustee Pavese?
Yes.
Trustee Model?
No.
4-2.
I guess we're tabling it till the next meeting then, so we will carry on then. Okay, on D, update regarding stereogenics in Willowbrook, Illinois, and I believe that this is going to start off with some introduction from Doug Scott. Is that correct?
It's at your direction. I can provide the update or follow up if you'd like to address the preparation of the letter.
Let's start off with that, and then we can get on to the business.
Trustee or Acting President Model has asked myself and the village attorney regarding the preparation of the letter to the Attorney General and the process for the preparation of that letter. That being letter February 11th that the board signed and sent to the Attorney General. asking the Attorney General and the DuPage State's Attorney to seek immediate shutdown of Sterigenics. Of course, that was before the governor acted on February 15th. That process began on Tuesday, February 5th, when EPA issued new test results. The test results were worse than they've been. The higher levels of ETO in the air alarmed the community, and we discussed it with Willowbrook and Darien, and they had decided to, those villages decided to send a letter to the Attorney General asking for immediate action to shut down Sterigenics based on these test results. My first step was to contact Acting President Model to ask him if he would authorize the preparation of a letter from the village board to the Attorney General and the DuPage State's Attorney asking for immediate action to shut down Sterigenics based on the test results issued that day. Although I do not recall the precise details of the conversation, after talking with Acting President Model, it's evident that he interpreted my comments in the phone call to mean that approval by the acting president was required to proceed with the letter, and that he was granting said approval in his capacity as acting president. Such an approval from the village president is not required. It is within my authority as a village administrator to direct the village attorney to prepare a draft letter for consideration by the village board. Nonetheless, I regret that I did not make that clear to acting President Model, and apparently that did cause some confusion as he proceeded the rest of the week. On Wednesday, February 6th, I talked to Trustee Francis about this matter. Since he is the chairman of the Environmental Quality Commission, I wanted to bring him into the loop to discuss, to let him know that we were preparing this letter, and I did so. Also on February 6th, village staff posted an update regarding Sterigenics on the village website. The update indicated that the villages of Willowbrook and Burr Ridge and the city of Darien have requested that the Illinois Attorney General and the DuPage State's Attorney seek an emergency court order to immediately shut down Sterigenics until there is definitive proof that ethylene oxide presents no health hazards to the surrounding communities. As the letter was not yet signed by the village board, this update should not have been posted, and I apologize for that. The draft letter itself was completed on February 11th, which time was shared by the village board. And on Monday evening, the 11th, all 6 trustees signed the letter, and the letter was mailed on February 12th. I also provided to the village board a legal opinion from the village attorney Euler, which was requested by acting president Model. And in that letter, village attorney Euler indicates that trustee Model's actions in this regard were lawful and did not violate any village policy. I apologize for the posting on the website, which was not written properly, and it indicated that the letter had already gone out when in fact it had not yet. It was still in preparation. Also, I regret that I was not able to explain that process better to acting president Model in my initial conversations with him. I'd be happy to answer any questions that the board may have on that.
Thank you, Administrator Pollack. Are there questions for the administrator regarding his comments? Yes, Trustee Schiappa.
Well, on that politicking, I didn't hear an update of Sterigenics closing.
That's coming up right next here, but this was important to get out of the way because this was made an issue last, and I wanted to have it's important that the staff clarified. Was there any clarity from Attorney Euler? We'd asked for some clarity on the legality of actions. Also, right, there was a comment that
there actually were 2 issues, I think. One was a press release, as I understand it, that was issued on Trustee Model's campaign website that everybody became aware of before the last village meeting. That press release was not a matter of village business. It was a private campaign communication. People can make of it whatever they want, but that is not an unlawful act. It is consistent with Illinois law, and it was not in violation of any village policy. The second letter was a letter that you all saw and that you all signed.
Thank you for those two important clarifications. Is there now a further update on Sterigenics? Are you going to talk about that, or is Evan going to take that?
Yes, I will give you the update. Much of what I will report has been previously reported either on our website or in your summary for this tonight's agenda packet. Of course, the good news is, as previously mentioned this evening, was that on February 15th, the governor did issue a seal order against Sterigenics. This order prohibits Sterigenics from starting any new processes using ethylene oxide. Sterigenics appealed this order and it went before the judge on Tuesday, February 19th, Sterigenics appealed this order under an emergency motion in federal court on Tuesday, February 19th, with a ruling by the federal court upholding the seal order occurring on Thursday, February 21st. Sterigenics has since filed for a preliminary injunction in federal court. Preliminary injunctions are non-emergency in nature and act as a next step in the appeal process for Sterigenics. The hearing to consider the preliminary injunction will be heard tomorrow, Tuesday, February 26th. We'll certainly report to the board as soon as we hear anything in that regard. In the meantime, several bills regarding the use of ethylene oxide have been filed by Senator Kern in the Illinois General Assembly. Copies were provided to the board of those bills. The letter previously mentioned from the trustees asking the Attorney General and the DuPage State's Attorney to close Sterigenics was mailed on Tuesday, February 12th. Also, on February 12th, the Environmental Quality Commission had its first meeting on issues related to Sterigenics. Draft minutes of that meeting were included in your agenda packet, and there's a summary of the actions under consideration by the committee. The committee's next meeting will be on Wednesday, March 6th, here at the Village Hall. Also, additional testing results were published by the U.S. EPA on February 29th. Those test results were posted. And finally, the Village of Hinsdale has voted to petition to join the Attorney General in the DuPage State's Attorney lawsuit, making a total of 4 municipalities, Darien, Willowbrook, Burr Ridge, and Hinsdale, are seeking to join that action. That's all I have at this point. Evan, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
Yes, just touching on the, there also were results released by Willowbrook. These results were partially due to their 30-day testing that they had recently approved. These were a combination of outdoor and indoor testing results. Suffice it to say, they were much higher than what had normally been recorded by the EPA or Burr Ridge or any other testing consortium at this time. Some of the results were so high that the village actually termed them as unexplainable. Their words, not ours, in a press release. Those words were actually ended up in one of Sterigenics' court cases, or court petitions, I should say. But suffice it to say, these were extremely high results that were received at the Village Hall location, specifically indoors. Just something to take note of, that additional results are coming out beyond that of the EPA's. Speaking of the EPA's testing regimen, that is scheduled to run out at the end of February. So just to reiterate, the seal order essentially makes that ethylene oxide cannot be newly used in new processes. They cannot reopen ETO drums. So in effect, they are continuing to off-gas and vent as they normally would have before the seal order was issued. So we still are seeing some elements of ETO being released into the air, not to mention the fact that ETO has an extremely long half-life. So just because they're shut down does not mean the air is clear. By no means is that the case. Pursuant to that, with the off-gassing taking about 1 to 2 weeks to fully conclude and vent out of its facility, this would coincide with the end of the EPA's testing regimen, approximately, again, February 28th. After conversing with Trustee Francis, who's the chair of the EQC, we had discussed the possibility of formally requesting that the EPA extend its testing deadline for 30 to 60 additional days. What this would do would essentially allow us to find better information in terms of how much ETO was being emitted by Sterigenics, or at least have a much better idea as to how they would be the main emitter of ETO in the area. If some of you, and I know some of you have, been participating in their, we'll call them occasional webinars and conference calls, EPA has been somewhat reluctant to cast full blame on Sterigenics for whatever reason. At this time, though, they do indicate that they seem to think, but don't provide any theory or evidence thereof, of a secondary ETO or other ETO sources beyond Sterigenics being released in the area. And so I'm hoping with some of the board's consideration that we would ask the EPA to consider extending their timeline to further test this process in the area, not necessarily to put off any final resolution on this matter, but simply to allow us to have a better idea of just how much ETO is being released by Sterigenics as they continue to not be under a seal order, I should say. Many documents have come out, of course, reading all of the court cases that have come out, the opinions that have been issued by the judge, Judge Farrelly, that came out last week. It is in the case of Judge Wood's chambers tomorrow morning, I believe at 9 in the morning. That'll be at the Dirksen Building downtown if anyone would like to attend. I have a pressing engagement. I will not be able to attend, but I will certainly be following along to find out the result of that hearing. Hopefully we get a result tomorrow on some level. But certainly, again, a lot has happened rapidly over the last few weeks since our last EQC meeting. Many things were discussed at that meeting, and I look forward to working more with our administrator and the EQC on developing those ideas further. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, staff, for those reports. Trustee Francis, in your role as chairman of the EQC, did you have anything you wanted to add before the board opens it up for questions and comments?
Well, other than at our first meeting, we had a great meeting. It came out with numerous action items which staff is diligently working on, and due to the number of action items, we're not able to meet until March. We hope to be able to meet sooner, but there's just a lot of work and additional effort that we're asking staff to follow up on. And we're assuming that this problem hasn't gone away, it's not finished, and we're continuing to keep up the fight against this company that emits ethylene oxide into our community. So business as usual. Thank you.
Thank you for your efforts and for the committee's efforts. I read your minutes, and I appreciate the good work you all are doing to help us in this problem that we have here. Is there any comments or questions from the board? Yes, Trustee Snyder.
Are we continuing also an investigation or more still testing? Have we stopped our testing?
Our testing is complete.
Okay, is that one of your actions to go forward, possibly? Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the board? One question then that I had was about Evan's recommendation. I don't know if we're allowed to consider that or take action, but I'm curious if you think this might be the time to maybe call on the EPA to extend their testing deadline, because it sounds, am I correct? It sounds like they're going to stop testing right when you want to take some data to see if the shutdown is helping or hurting. Am I correct?
Certainly. I think what we've been wondering has been, what is the comparability of Sterigenics at full capacity, or whatever they define as full capacity, versus when they're not operating at all. Again, the EPA was on the record in their last meeting as to say that they, again, in whatever capacity they think this is true, that they think there are other sources, secondary and thirdly, other sources of ETO in the area, and thus further testing would allow for a clearer picture of what that actually might look like.
Interesting. And can we do our own testing?
We certainly could. There is no agenda item to expend further dollars tonight. The letter to the EPA would not require an agenda item, though. It would simply require direction from the board. You could make that motion tonight, is what I'm saying.
It seems to me it would be good to get a motion to ask the EPA to extend their testing. I think that would be in the best interest of the residents, from what I'm understanding. But
I would agree, and I would also, maybe put on the next agenda consideration. I will be in contact with our consultant, just in case EPA doesn't proceed. We can be in contact with our consultant and get a proposal to put on the next agenda for your consideration to do, for BoardMeeting to do additional testing.
Doug, is that the same consultant that Willowbrook uses?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Did you need a motion for that, Doug?
Do we need a motion for that?
For the letter? Or
for the letter, we'd have to put the other matter on the agenda, on the next agenda.
Would you like to make a motion about the letter?
Motion? Did we need a motion or not?
Yes, for the letter, he said we need a motion.
Okay, right. So moved. Write the letter to the U.S. EPA to continue with their testing 60 days past their current expiration date.
Second.
Any discussion on this? Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Francis?
Yes.
Trustee Schiappa?
Yes.
Trustee Paveza?
Yes.
Trustee Maital?
Yes.
Trustee Snyder?
Yes.
Trustee Model?
Yes. Okay, so we're going to send a letter to the EPA asking them to extend their deadline, and we will put an agenda on the next meeting to talk about funding, perhaps some additional testing, since it sounds like the EPA might not come through for us. Okay, anything else about stereogenics from the board right now at this time? Any staff? Okay, seeing none, now we are on agenda item E. Consideration of a recession of ordinance number 1184 and ordinance appointing acting village president. Consideration of any further action regarding addressing or filling vacancy in office of village president. Yes, Trustee Schiappa.
So I called that ordinance back up into the agenda because my concerns of your role sitting as village president. What I'd like to do is hear from some of my trustees, and this is something that we all need to decide on. So I just realized my microphone was off. So I'll start over. So I brought this back to our meeting because of my concern of how you're leading the village. And so what I'd like to do is hear from my other trustees, because this is a decision that all of us need to make. So we can bring it to the board level.
Would anyone like to make any comments?
As I can go.
Yes, Trustee Mittal.
As today's meeting is a great example, I think Zach's doing a great job of leading the village as the pro temp mayor.
Thank you for your comments. Any other comments from the board?
Well, I see that as the exact opposite. One of the comments that we had was because of his running for election, there would be politics involved. And in my opinion, what happened tonight, with people coming in on both sides for Zach or again, had no business in the boardroom. That's not board business. That's political business. And that's what we were afraid of when we objected to Trustee Model taking the acting mayor or president, that this would involve. Another example is his committee gives out the press release. His campaign committee gives out the press release. That's politics. That don't belong in Burridge business. I'm sorry. I've been on the board a long time. I've never seen this happen.
Yes, Trustee Snyder.
Mr. Attorney, did you state earlier in the release that Trustee Models did nothing incorrect or not dragging in anything for the village whatsoever, and it was his own personal campaign?
I stated that there was nothing, and there is nothing unlawful, as long as there is no use of village resources, village funds, to engage in private campaign activities. And the press release, as I understand it, the press release we were discussing at our last meeting, was issued from Trustee Model's private campaign website. And on that basis, that does not involve village resources or village funds. It is not unlawful.
So that is direct opposite of what Trustee Paveza was stating.
If there was a contention that it was unlawful, yes. If there's a contention that he disagrees with it, that's, everybody has a right to their own opinion.
Everyone has an opinion. Thank you.
Okay, great. I have no further comments. Is there a motion? Oh, I'm sorry, Trustee Francis.
Yes, thank you. So let's go back to the January 14th meeting. You had asked to have an agenda item put on there about ethical behavior of elected officials. And what ended up being was you listed all your campaign donations from your opponent, put them up here on the screen, at which time the acting village president asked you to remove them. But you successfully were able to divide this board based on that. At the February 8th press release, in the press release you state you authorized staff and the village attorney proceed with to pursue an injunction against, stop manufacturing injunction against Sterigenics. When you don't have that authority to authorize staff and authorize the village board, this, authorize village attorney, this board has the authority to do that, not you. I'm going to take a bit of my own medicine here and talk about District 86, but I don't think it belongs in this boardroom, but I have to bring it up. I have to talk about it. You've reminded me several times how those residents in Burr Ridge who live in District 86 voted 75-25. Whatever the numbers are, that's great. So you successfully divided this village, 75-25. However, not 2 ways, Zach, but 3 ways, because there are those District 204 residents, those 45% of the residents in the village of Burr Ridge who live in District 204 who don't want this District 86 issue politicized in our boardroom, don't want village funds spent on District 86, don't want village resources spent on District 86, and don't want us wasting time on it. It's an important issue, yes. Does it belong in this boardroom? No. And you have to understand that there's collateral damage for your involvement in this referendum. Good or bad, or whatever your position is. I'm not here to take sides on it. I'm just here to tell you there's collateral damage. Boycott Burr Ridge, a website that this village is trying to get shut down right now and can't. If you go to the website, you'll see that there are businesses for Burr Ridge listed, and then there's alternatives in other communities that residents and non-residents can patronize. The website's filled with hate messages, and your name comes up there a lot in there, Zach, in this website, unfortunately. But there's collateral damage for your outside activities. You have to realize that and understand that. And you've successfully divided this village 3 ways. You politicized this boardroom with these campaign donations, politicized the Stop Sterigenics issue by giving the direction to staff and the village attorney when you don't have that authority, jumping on a bandwagon when too little too late, and you successfully divided this village. And because of that, I ask that you step down.
Thank you for your comments. Yes, Trustee Snyder.
That last discussion about, you want to discuss District 86, Doug, has the village spent any money and village time on District 86 for us as a board?
The referendum.
Not directly on the referendum, if that's what you mean.
Yes.
No, we've not spent money on the referendum.
Any time for the village individuals?
On the referendum?
Yes.
No.
Okay, thank you.
I tend to disagree a little bit.
Let's keep order if you want to be acknowledged. You were not the first one. I believe there was Trustee Schiappa.
Okay, sorry.
Thank you.
I think their point is that maybe there was a village time on the referendum, but there was village time on District 86. Time spent putting the committee together and putting minutes together for a local school committee that's focused on solely District 86 and doesn't include anyone from District 204. So, my point is that the boardrooms for Burr Ridge Village business, we as a board have stressed the importance of keeping Burr Ridge's best interest at the forefront. You have not done that. You've taken action without board approval. And the fact that there was a miscommunication between you and Doug, I think that just exemplifies your inexperience. How can there be a miscommunication between Doug and you? I mean, Doug works with all of us and has worked with other village presidents. So I don't buy that. I've always maintained a position that you should not act as village president as you are campaigning for village president. That's why I was focused on putting Guy Franzese or even Al. Al's on the ballot, but he's not campaigning for village president. Your campaign materials look like official village propaganda. You even have the colors of the village on your campaign materials. And you've got the title as village president. You're not putting down Zach Model for village president. You are stating you are the village president, which you are not. You're still a trustee. You hold a vote. You're presiding over our meetings. You didn't resign your post as trustee to become president, because the village president doesn't have a vote. So I believe you've polarized the village with your position on the district. You've politicized the position of village president by taking action without board approval. Therefore, I'm making a motion to have Zach Model removed as interim mayor of Burridge and have Guy Franzese take his place immediately.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Can I clarify something?
Please, you can clarify it before we've got
procedurally.
Yes.
I think the way we put it on the agenda, there was a request to put this on the agenda before this evening.
Yes.
So everybody knew it would be discussed, and there might be action. The previous action of the board was to adopt an ordinance, putting in place 3 acting presidents over time, each to take 3 meetings. So we can't put the toothpaste back in the tube as to the acting president who has served 3 meetings.
Okay.
Trustee Paveza. That ordinance then would need to be addressed, meaning if there's a motion to rescind that ordinance, then the appointment of the next 2 acting mayors would be undone. And there would need to be a
motion to rescind the ordinance.
Right, there would need to be action in the future then after, if in fact that passes, to fill the vacant chair of the mayor.
So you're making a motion to rescind the ordinance?
Yes, please.
And is there are you still seconding that ordinance?
What changed?
It's a motion to essentially undo the decision that was made when the board approved ordinance 1184, creating 3 positions of acting mayor.
With the rescind the ordinance.
Yes, yes, I maintain my second, but before Tony, I had my hand up, you said to go to Tony, which was right.
I'm going to let you carry on the discussion here.
Yeah,
You're going to have the
but
mic in 1 minute.
The comment I wanted to make in response to Trustee Snyder, no, as of right now, we haven't spent any money, but if it wasn't for the politicization of this mayor's job, we wouldn't have had to have the attorney here all the time and all the things that he's been involved with, and there will be many, many thousands of dollars attorney's bill that we would not have had if this hadn't come about. Because if you've seen the agendas, they're, except for Sterigenics, they're very mundane, nothing out of the ordinary, except for this. And because of this, yes, we are going to spend a lot of money on the attorney's bill.
That's news to me. Anyway, I'm sorry, Trustee Francis, please.
Doug, didn't we spend some of Scott's time researching what this village can and can't do with respect to a referendum by a different body?
I don't believe that specifically on referendums. We did spend staff time and we spent dollars on researching local school issues in general, more in general, but it wasn't, correct me if I'm wrong, Scott, it wasn't specifically on the referendum, and that was the question I was asked. But we have certainly spent time with supporting the local school committee last year, and
prior to that, I thought we had Scott do some research for us on what this village can and can't do with respect to referendums. Is that true?
Yes.
With respect to becoming involved in school-related governance matters, yes.
That's what I'm asking. Thank you.
Yeah.
And did we not,
Karen,
did we not hire another attorney also?
We did, yes.
And so we spent money on another attorney besides Scott's attorney's fees. Okay, so we did spend money.
Trustee Snyder.
Doug, was that or not under direction of our past mayor, like your Mayor Straub or President Straub?
It was under the direction of the full village board.
Right.
Yes, and for a different mayor.
Okay, thank you.
I just wanted to clarify that we've had Attorney Euler here ever since the Sterigenics issue came up. So he's been here since then, and not just in the past few meetings.
Yeah, I was wondering who requested you to come here. Not that I don't enjoy your presence next to me. How has he gotten here?
I had asked him to be here. It's within my authority to, the village attorney attends meetings at my discretion or at the village board's discretion. I had made the decision when we had vacancy in the acting village president, that we should have the village attorney here for all the meetings in this interim period.
And I think for some of your past meetings, President Straub had asked that we attend those meetings as well.
Occasionally, right.
Okay, great. So we have the motion, a first and a second. We've all made some comments. Is there any other comments before we call a vote here from the board? Okay, clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Skiappa.
Before I vote, I want to challenge our trustees to make the right decision and to remove the politicization from our board. Yes.
Trustee Paveza.
Yes.
Trustee Francis.
Yes.
Trustee Snyder.
No.
Trustee Maital.
No.
Trustee Model.
No.
3-3.
So the motion doesn't pass. All right, and again, I just want to remind you, I have done my best. In fact, I've not only done my best, I've never brought the referendum issues or any other political issues of mine into this room. So it has not been me, but I appreciate everyone's concerns. Those are valid concerns. Okay, next on the agenda, we have F, consideration of censure of trustees for release of confidential information from deliberations of closed sessions.
This was requested by Trustee Snyder.
Great, Trustee Snyder.
I would like to make a motion to censure the 3 trustees for releasing of confidential information from the deliberations of a closed session. They brought that up in the last meeting before, and stood up there and made very clear statements of what was in a closed session where we had the attorney and our village administrator. I'd like them all 3 of them censured.
Can I ask what the information was?
Well, we just had a first and a second, and actually, I've got a copy of the minutes here, right here, if you want to look at the minutes. Or do you want to read the minutes? I thought, Joe, you might want them, or I'm not sure who wants the minutes from the last meeting.
To be read.
No, these are the minutes from the public meeting, from the last
okay.
public meeting where those trustees mentioned those.
They're not closed session.
No, those are the open minutes where they talked about the closed session items that Mr. Snyder is bringing up.
Okay, you're asking the clerk to read the highlighted portion.
Yeah, I think, let's see, I think we start. Correct, yeah, these would be 1, 2, and 3, right?
Okay. Reading from the record, February 11th, 2019 is the regular meeting, President and Board of Trustees, Village of Burr Ridge. Trustee Francis stated Trustee Model acted beyond his authority with the press release and that he is politicizing Sterigenics. He continued that Trustee Model had agreed when appointed acting president that he would not politicize, and if he did, he would step down. Trustee Francis requested he step down as acting president. Trustee Paveza agreed with Trustee Francis that Trustee Model is politicizing Sterigenics. Trustee Skiappa also agreed with Trustee Francis that Trustee Model is politicizing the Sterigenics issue and asked Trustee Model to step down. And at that point, the motion was made by Trustee Skiappa to have Trustee Model step down, so on and so forth.
That's the, I believe, the portion you're referring
Correct.
to? Okay, we have a motion and a second on censure. Is there further discussion from the board on this issue? Yes, Trustee Paveza.
We're talking, and that's what I asked Trustee Snyder. All I agreed with him, I didn't release any information, and I don't think he did. All he said is you politicized it. We didn't, there was a lot, we were there a half hour in the closed session, maybe longer.
Trustee Snyder.
Mr. Euler, isn't it, we can't really discuss anything what we discussed, correct? Yes.
For 2 reasons.
So from that standpoint, there's nothing to discuss here in open session.
Right, for 2 reasons. The law provides
Correct.
for closed session. You all generally agree when you go into closed session not to disclose matters that are discussed in closed session. You also have a village policy that provides that matters that are discussed in closed session are not to be released, and if they are, they're subject to censure.
Correct. Would that include anything I did or didn't say in the closed session to the trustees?
If it was a closed session matter, we're not supposed to discuss it. Unless the village board authorizes the disclosures of village board, it's supposed to be kept in closed session.
Okay, Trustee Scott.
Closed sessions are usually used for the employment of an employee, any direct personnel issues, or any pending litigation. Okay, essentially, you're not an employee. You are we're trustees here, we work for the residents. I don't know how.
Right, just to clarify though, there is an exception for this board, for a municipal board, to go into closed session to discuss filling a vacancy on the board. So if one of the trustees, the mayor, steps down for whatever reason,
right,
vacates the seat, there is an express exception in the Open Meetings Act that allows you to go into closed session to discuss those matters so you can have a free and open discussion about how to fill the vacancy. So it is similar to the exception for employment or appointment of employees, litigation, same sort of exception.
And can you explain, so what does this mean? I don't understand.
What does censure mean?
Right, so
it means
vote for this, and the three of us are censured. What does that mean?
Right, the doctrine in Illinois for elected officials is that elected officials cannot be disciplined, cannot be removed from office, except by the voters.
Okay.
So the Attorney General's office has indicated that if something happens in closed session or otherwise, something happens in open session that the board is unhappy with, a motion to censure a member of a board can be made, but there are no other actions that can be taken to remove somebody from office.
So I still don't understand. So I can't talk again, or?
No, you can't. A motion to censure.
What's the censure do then?
Censure means that the board disagrees with something that was done, essentially. Okay. That a majority of the board disagrees with something that was done.
Sounds like an acknowledgement that the rules were broken. Is that appropriate?
The common sense meaning is that you're being censored for it. The majority of the board is saying it was something they didn't want you to do.
Trustee Paveza.
Can I ask the attorney a question? If something is said in closed session and agreed to in closed session, and then when you go to open session, it's a different story. Are we still obligated to be quiet about what happened when now you changed what you originally said in closed session?
Yes, what's said in closed session is supposed to remain in closed session unless the board authorizes the disclosure.
Even though what happened there, people are talking differently outside?
I understand the frustration, but the rule would be that it remains in closed session.
Remains closed, okay.
Further comments from the board? Further discussion? A motion and a second. Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Snyder?
Yes.
Trustee Maital?
Yes.
Trustee Francis?
No.
Trustee Paveza?
No.
Trustee Schiappa?
No.
Trustee Model?
No. Oh, yes, sorry, yes. Got a little excited there, sorry. Yeah, I was thinking of the last one, so I'm voting yes. But obviously the motion does not carry, so thank you. On both of these motions, we've had a good discussion. We've all had some clarity, and hopefully we can put this all behind us and move forward. Next on the agenda, we have item J, approval of nominations to appoint Paul Stetton, Victor Hernandez, Deborah Hamilton, and Sam O'Day to the Economic Development Committee for terms expiring on April 30th, 2020, and nomination to appoint Trustee Anita Mittal as Chair of the Downtown Burr Ridge Events Planning Committee. This was removed, I believe, by Trustee Schiappa.
Yes. So I just wanted some clarification. So I was under the impression, being a member of the Economic Development Committee, that we are looking to expand the Economic Development Committee. But I was under the impression, and that's why I wanted some clarification, we were going to pick leaders in Burr Ridge businesses or Burr Ridge residents. Am I right with that, or?
Are you asking me, or?
Well, yeah, I mean, who qualifies as a member for the?
Do you recall, was that specifically addressed in the updates we recently
There was
did?
no rule that said it had to be any set.
So it's something that I
certainly think, I want to clarify and be upfront and say, I think that there was an emphasis placed on that, but there was no rule that it be, a resident of Burr Ridge or a business owner of Burr Ridge. There were no hard and fast rules set.
Okay. All right. So with that, I motion to approve the nominations to appoint Paul Stetton, Victor Hernandez, Deborah Hamilton, and Sam O'Day to the Economic Development Committee for terms expiring April 30, 2020, and nomination to appoint Trustee Anita Mittal as Chair of the Downtown Burr Ridge Events Planning Committee.
Second.
Great. Any further discussion on this? Okay, seeing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Schiappa?
Yes.
Trustee Snyder?
Yes.
Trustee Maital?
Yes.
Trustee Francis?
Yes.
Trustee Paveza?
Yes.
Trustee Model?
Yes. Great. Welcome to all of you folks to our wonderful committees, and thank you for serving again, Trustee Mattal. Okay, the last thing on the agenda, L, other considerations for announcement, deliberation, and/or discussion only. No official action will be taken. Anything else here? I'm sorry, Trustee Schiappa.
So, for other considerations, it was brought to my attention by a resident that there is some effort to boycott Burr Ridge businesses. While I understand there are differences of opinion, I'd like to take this opportunity to urge Burr Ridge residents and residents of our neighboring towns to shop and patronize the businesses located in Burr Ridge. I would encourage more action at the polling places rather than attempting to hurt or penalize our small businesses in Burr Ridge. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee. You know, I totally agree with you, and I feel that there's so many of these difficult issues, and that I hear this boycott and let's go after them or attack their business. You know, we can disagree on issues, we can all disagree, but I hope that we can solve that at the ballot box, not be threatening people's businesses. You know, everybody can disagree, and there's a way to solve that, but it doesn't require this kind of behavior and actions. And I really hope to not give any more attention to any of those sites. You know, I just feel like that's bullies, and they like the microphone, so hopefully we won't have to worry about that again. And I'm not aware of any damage. I've not heard from actual Burr Ridge businesses that we've had a downturn in business at all. So let's hope that's where it stays, but thank you for those comments. I couldn't agree more. Now, here we are approaching the end of the meeting. We've had resident comments. Any resident that signed in has already spoken, so I don't see more residents signed in here. Now we've got 10 reports and communications from village officials. Seeing none. Now we get to non-resident oh, I'm sorry, Trustee Francis.
I was wondering if we could get an update from Public Works on our salt quantities and situation. I know we purchased additional salt, but I'd like to get an update, please. More bad weather on the horizon.
Thank you.
Sure, thanks. On the board agenda tonight was the concerning issue that came to our attention too, that we had expended the contract amount. So thank you for approving the overage. Winter's going to go long. It was expected this year. We had already gone to 41 inches of snow. It doesn't count some of the icing events. Even though it came down as a liquid precipitation, the ground had been so cold, especially after that polar vortex time, that it just became ice, and we had to treat that. So we expended quite a bit of salt. We have a sufficient quantity on hand. We're not in dire straits. By approving this, we can go over the contract amount. Detroit Salt will honor that. So it should be comfortable going forward. Again, just based on extended forecasts, it's supposed to be below zero after the weekend. Anyway, we did hear that the forecast will go long. Winter will go deep into March, so it was a concern we brought to your attention. Thank you.
And yes,
I want to commend you guys. You guys are terrific. Your department has done fabulous on all of the roads. A lot of the neighbors of mine have done great on our street. Well, Trustee Pervez and I are on the same street. That roads are clear, salted. They're just great. Walking these. Many people are walking up and down. So thank you.
I wanted to just echo your sentiments. Burr Ridge roads are very clean and on time.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, credit again to the operators that put in long hours and come out for short sleep or parties.
Yes, your team signed up for this, but you know they're doing a great job, and we appreciate all the extra effort and hours they're putting in here to keep the village safe. Any other comments? Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, great. Now we've completed that. Now we're on to non-residents' comments, and I do see one non-resident has signed up. Dale Pollock, I believe. Please approach the microphone and state your name and your town, please. You've got 5 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Dale Pollock from Hinsdale. 2 weeks ago, I had the opportunity to address the village board. Thank you very much. And I'd like to take this time this evening to address the residents of Burr Ridge that reside in the D86 district. You know, there's few things that are more emotional and closer to our hearts than our children, our home values, and our taxes. And to that extent, I would like to just make a few comments and clarify a few facts regarding each of those three important items. First of all, there's been a lot of misinformation regarding taxes. A lot of people say that we are excessively taxed here in our surrounding communities, including Burr Ridge. The fact is that the District 86 high school has either the lowest or the second lowest school tax in the county of DuPage. I would like to repeat that. The Hinsdale 86 school district has either the lowest or the second lowest tax for the schools of any other school district in DuPage County. So the thought is that this school district has gone back and back and back for more money simply isn't true. In fact, they've done quite the opposite, and the poor state of our facilities exemplify that behavior. Regarding our home values, I mean, let's just stop and think about this. You know, Burr Ridge clearly has had some grievances. And as noted earlier in the meeting, those grievances have been heard to a certain extent, to a large extent, and addressed. The buffer zone has been eliminated. No easy task. You know, you start changing school boundaries for people's children, and it's a pretty hard thing to do, as many of you saw. But nevertheless, it was done because it was the right thing to do. I think it's also recognized, as stated earlier, that curriculum realignment is underway now. So I say to the people of Burr Ridge, you have been heard, you'll continue to be heard. But if we continue to drive forward on a scorched earth policy of refusing to approve this referendum, there is no question that the home values in this community of the people who live in District 86 will tank. So the average tax increase, should this referendum pass, for a home of $500,000 would roughly be an extra $232 per year. Or for a home of $750,000 value, it's roughly an additional $479. If you took that 232...
Sir, this is not on our agenda at all.
If you took the 232 over 10 years, that's $23,000 and some change.
Mr. Pollock, with all due respect, that you're talking about a school matter. I think the board tried to emphasize tonight that District 86 matters are not the jurisdiction of this board.
I didn't realize there was any restriction on non-resident comments.
Well, only to the extent that this board really can't address District 86.
Right, and I'm addressing the citizens of the village.
And your comments need to actually be directed to the chair, sir, and they should be directed to something on the agenda.
So is it not okay for me to address some factual issues to the village, the citizens of the village?
If it's not on the agenda, sir.
Their home values will tank if this isn't approved. Not only will their home values tank, but most concerningly, the children of this district will be denied athletic activities, social activities, and other extracurricular activities.
I think you're done. I think you're done, sir. Please, thank you for your comments. Keep them to the agenda.
I still have 5 minutes left.
So your time is up. Thank you.
So I asked the
as the
citizens
chair, your time is up, sir.
Please
conclude your
abandon
comments.
the scorched earth. You're making progress. Please continue to make progress.
Thank you, sir. Your
I
comments
also
are
think there are
finished.
some residents that have not spoken that would like to speak.
Can you please? Thank you for your comments, sir. Okay, we have completed the residents and non-residents. We've completed the meeting.
Non-residents who'd like to speak.
No one asked us.
Yes.
There was ample time given for sign up at the beginning of the meeting. We called it many, many times here. I think the meeting.
I believe at the last meeting, non-residents spoke if they felt they needed to speak. Is that not correct?
And you didn't do it 2 weeks ago, Zach. Let anybody speak.
Right.
And what I have to say is
we do have
related
it
to a topic tonight.
section that does not ordinarily require signing up.
We call.
It's related to
have
a sign-up sheet.
I think we called for residents to sign up.
We called for anyone that wanted to speak to sign up in multiple times.
Just our practice, I think, is to allow non-resident comments.
I have a legal question.
Let Scott run it. Let Scott just have them talk. Let Scott have them. You have to let them talk.
Yeah, I mean, it's.
You've got 5 minutes. Please keep it to the agenda, please.
Thank you, Zach. I liked the comments that some of the residents gave of what Zach has brought to the town, and it's nice to hear that point of view. It's one of the things they said was It's important for the Burr Ridge Board to improve the village, to get things done for Burr Ridge, and it sounds like Zach has done that. On the school front, they're saying, do things that are best for Burr Ridge. I don't know if this is necessarily best for Burr Ridge. This is your voice. I'll play it. If you deny it...
Ma'am, is this on the agenda? Is this on the
this
agenda?
This is something that you're doing to the entire community outside of Burr Ridge.
Is already working to put a nearly identical referendum on this election's ballot that is just as unfair, wasteful, and unaffordable as the last one. It should be appalling step of taking away our children's and activities, holding them hostage.
I'm sorry, he's running this into the entire district. He is running this to the entire district, and he's supposed to be focused on Burr Ridge and helping Burr Ridge.
You stopped me from talking 2 weeks ago, and you said I couldn't have two of this.
Ma'am, can you turn off the recorder, please? I'm not sure we can even figure out what it is.
He also allowed me to comment, but within 2 minutes on his site, his Facebook site, he eliminated my comment. And I would like to read my comment because I think it is valid for Burr Ridge. Mr. Model, curious as to what your thoughts are on this. Dr. Law is leaving D86 for another top district that has already invested heavily in 2 high schools.
Ma'am, the school stuff is not on the agenda.
It actually, it's
fired 5 superintendents in 5 years in that district.
well, that's interesting, but they passed a referendum in 2013.
Excuse me, no comments from the audience, please. Can you stop for just a minute? I think we need to clarify what what we talked about here at the village meeting.
That would be good because I know a lot of comments were made at the last Burr Ridge meeting, which is why I decided to come.
So let's see if we can clarify what the nature of the comment is that's anticipated at our board meetings. First of all, we do have a 5-minute time limit. That's been mentioned.
Well, you're interrupting me, so
I'm not.
You've gone into my 5 minutes.
Your time is suspended for now. I'm not taking up any of your time. I'm not trying to argue with you. I'm just trying to clarify. I think it's turning into kind of a chaotic process. We can't hear what you want to say.
Yes, I'd like to be not interrupted. That would be great. Can I speak?
May I finish my comments, please?
Sure.
So we understand what the nature of the public comment in this meeting is supposed to be. Mm-hmm. This is not your meeting. You're allowed to speak at this meeting. So please let me clarify what the nature of the public comment is at these meetings. The village board listens to matters that the village board has jurisdiction over. It doesn't have to be on the agenda necessarily. It certainly helps if we have business on the agenda that's directly related to what the business of this board is. But if this board can't control or make decisions about a matter that somebody wants to speak about here, this is not the forum for that discussion. If it's a discussion about school matters, that belongs before the school board. I think this board just had that discussion tonight that they don't discuss District 86 matters here. We can't impact District 86 matters as a board.
But you did discuss D86 in the comments when you talked about how much time is going into getting Burr Ridge not to be boycotted and things like that. And it was because of Mr. Model's campaign, frankly. And honestly, 23 other high schools have already made these updates. I don't know why in the world he would not want our high schools to be just as good.
Ma'am, you didn't state your name for the record or the town.
Segregation does not
Ma'am,
fix
I think this
the
is getting
schools.
out of order. I think your 5 minutes is done. Thank you, ma'am.
Segregation does not fix the schools. The curriculum
Ma'am, your
equity
5 minutes
does
is
not
up.
fix the
Chief,
schools.
will you please ask her to step down?
Will you please stop your vote no campaign?
So
Chief, maybe it would help if you stood next to the microphone during the next...
So can I just finish the explanation?
Please, Scott.
Look, you're welcome to speak at the meetings. You're invited to speak at the village board meetings. The village board wants to hear what the residents have to say. The only clarification we are trying to emphasize is there are matters this board doesn't control and doesn't govern. Those matters, if it's a school board matter, if it's a park district matter, if it's not, if it doesn't involve this, ma'am, can you please sit down?
So you're saying
getting out of
your
control.
Burr Ridge
Please.
mayor can run a robocall to the entire district, trying to tank
Chief,
the
will
schools?
you please
That involves
help
your
me
district.
maintain order here,
He is
please?
putting a robocall
Ma'am,
to the
please
entire
sit
district.
down. Please sit down.
I'm not taking issue with anything specifically. I'm just trying to emphasize that this board's business is village business. And for those matters that this board is able to impact and govern, that's what our public comment period is really for. That's what it's designed for. if somebody went to the school board meeting and wanted to talk about an annexation here in Burr Ridge, I think that would be inappropriate. The school board president could say, look, you're in front of the wrong.
The Burr Ridge mayor is sending out.
Yes.
Please
Yes,
don't be
I'm
yelling
not
from the audience.
Trying to argue.
It involves Burr Ridge.
Right, I'm not trying to argue with you, I'm just trying to clarify what
I don't
our
understand how,
public
I
comment
don't
period is
understand
for.
what's clarified, because it involves Burr Ridge.
Okay, did you want to go ahead? I'm sorry.
Yeah, ma'am, please state your name and your town for the
I
record.
absolutely will. My name is Lori Thompson, and I live in Clarendon Hills, so obviously I'm a non-resident. I am here because and I believe I'm going to relate it to a topic that was brought up tonight, and it was in relation to Mr. Chiappa's motion. And also when Yvonne Meyer brought up that some comments on Facebook were deleted, and specifically to Mr. Model's page. And it's interesting because I don't know if this is considered an official page of Mr. Model, but he was referencing an article, which I have a copy of that I'll share, from the DuPage Policy Journal, and it says, as village trustee, I've led the fight against higher taxes on Burr Ridge residents, and as your village president, that seems official here, I will work every day to help you lower your property taxes and increase your home values. So I made a comment just a couple of days ago, and this was originated on February 7th, but a couple of days ago, where I did make one comment that maybe he didn't find appropriate, but I said, and this is short, but you've acted like a cult leader against public education while you say that you will work every day to increase home values. Did you forget that a great public school is a basis for high home values? Please don't interrupt.
Ma'am, this is not.
Please don't interrupt. Do you not meet with realtors who can tell you exactly how to maintain home values? So the reason why I'm bringing this up is because my comment no longer exists. If you were to go to Mr. Model's page right now, you would not see this comment, and I would like to just pass this along for you to see. And from what I understand from June of 2017, it says that there was a question that talked about President Trump, whether or not he could delete public comments from social media, and it was ruled, I believe it was June or July of 2017, you cannot do that. And so repeatedly, comments have been deleted. Now, I can't actually make a comment anymore. I only made one comment, and I am blocked.
So did I.
So what I don't understand is why Mr. Chiappa's motion wasn't put forth. You have someone who clearly is going against the rules of whether or not you can delete a public comment. And he's done it over and over again. This is one example that I've shared. We can get others. There's actually a copy that I have that I don't have a hard copy, where right across, it's a screenshot where it says that the comment has been deleted, and it's right across Mr. Model's page. And I can provide a copy for you. You can pass this along if you want to.
I don't know if I can take your phone.
Okay? So I guess, my question is, if we are supposed to be above board, on the board, why do we allow these behaviors? So is that a question you can address?
Are you concluded with your comments?
Pardon me?
Are you finished?
I don't
Thank you for your
understand
comments.
how you can allow this kind of behavior. And so what does the board think about that aspect? When it clearly stated, summer of 2017, that it is against the Constitution. And I provided a copy. I've even, on this, I can provide another copy where it says that the comment has been deleted. By the way, I also have a third one that shows the amount of time elapsed from the time I made the comment to the time it was deleted. It was under 7 minutes.
Ma'am, your 5 minutes is up. Thank you for your comments. Please conclude
Okay,
and step
will
down.
you respond to me?
Please step down from the microphone, ma'am.
Okay, I encourage anyone to please respond to this.
Okay, do we have other non-residents? Oh, I see one more. Okay, well, we're past that point in the meeting.
I have a
right?
question. I'm
Ma'am,
I'm
ma'am,
very
you
confused, and I have a question. I am a resident.
Yes,
I have
know,
been
but
for
we've
about 30
completed
years.
that
I have
section
a
already.
question for the board. I have a question for the attorney, really. I'm confused.
Ma'am, look.
I'm confused because you
Chief,
just
you
said
please
that we
step
can
up to the
talk
podium.
about school.
We cannot have
We
the
can't
audience
talk about
controlling
school.
the
We
meeting. The
cannot
chair
talk-
of the
Can I
board,
ask a question?
no, not
I
until,
would like to ask a
not until
question.
you're recognized to speak.
They don't want you to speak, I'm sorry.
I have one question.
You haven't been
please.
recognized to speak.
Can I ask
No,
you a question?
not unless you're recognized to speak. We have to have some order to our meeting, please.
Did we have a committee at
Can you
Burr Ridge
please-
to talk about school issues?
Can you please have a seat?
You as
Thank you,
the
ma'am.
attorney, and now we can talk about
I was not paid to do anything.
Thank you. Okay, we've heard from the non-residents now. That brings us to the point of the meeting of adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn?
You're adjourning to closed session.
Oh, adjourning into closed
If we're
session.
gonna have a closed session.
Sorry, thank you.
So moved.
Second.
Your motion is to adjourn into closed session?
Yes.
Isn't that the next item on the agenda?
Yes. If there is a desire by the board to discuss this issue in closed session.
Yes.
Okay, do we need to state the reason?
Yes.
You need to state the reason in your motion, please.
To release the closed minutes and verbatim record of, I don't have the date.
That's, I think, good enough for the record, right?
For the
December 10th, I
release
think
of-
it was? For the December 10th closed meeting. So I'd like to motion to move into closed session for the release of closed session minutes and verbatim record of December 10th, 2018.
All right, before we take that vote, can I please make a comment about our public comment
Yes, you may.
segments of our meetings? The village residents and non-residents are allowed to make public comments at the meeting. You have to be recognized. There's somebody running this meeting. It's not my meeting. It's not anybody's meeting in the audience. It's the chair of this board. So the chair needs to recognize an individual to step up to the podium at an appropriate time during the meeting, at an appropriate time in our agenda to speak. Otherwise, nobody can understand what somebody's saying. There's chaos in the meeting. We need to have some semblance of order so you're heard when you step up to the podium. There are some reasonable limits to what this board hears relative to its jurisdiction and its business. So there are things that you may want to comment on. This may not be the place to make those comments if this board does not have the ability to address those issues. I apologize for yelling, but for the person that simply stepped up to the podium, we have somebody who's running this meeting. And it's disrespectful of somebody to simply step up to the podium and run the meeting on your own when we do have some rules to follow that we would respectfully ask you to abide by.
Thank you for those comments. So we have a motion and a second. Trustee Francis, did you have a comment
Follow
on
what the village attorney was talking about there, and I think some of the concern was that item 9 may have been skipped over, residents' comments. And some residents came in late and didn't have an opportunity to sign in or didn't know they were supposed to sign in. So that may have caused some of the issues here tonight. Thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Trustee Skiappa.
Yes.
Trustee Snyder.
Yes.
Trustee Mytal.
Yes.
Trustee Francis.
Yes.
Trustee Cavazza.
Yes.
Trustee Model.
Yes.
6-0.
Great. Meeting is adjourned into closed session. Thank you all for coming. I appreciate your participation.